The impossible truth tonight. Pope's bull unleashes Spanish stampede. Beatles decode gun-toting joy. And Stanislav, world saviour, lunch lover. Plus, coming up, eyebrow emergency. Will Dame Judi Dench donate a brow? Those are the headlines. Rolling with the truth like a bowling ball.
News bang, so sharp it bleeds news. 1493.
Pope Alexander VI, a man whose morals are as flexible as a gymnast in a wind tunnel, has declared finders keepers on the Americas. His papal bull, Dibs, gives Spain exclusive rights to do whatever they fancy with the New World. Pillage, plunder, unlimited paella. It's all fair game.
Eyewitnesses report the Pope chuckling like a gleeful toddler as he signed away half the planet. One disgruntled cardinal muttered, "Next he'll be giving away free indulgences with every tankard of ale."
Meanwhile, the Spanish monarchs are reportedly stocking up on conquistador helmets and flamenco dresses for their transatlantic shopping spree.
1968.
Those luminous reprobates, the Beatles, have unleashed another sonic assault on the world's eardrums. Their new track, Happiness is a Warm Gun, has left music critics bewildered and house pets cowering under the furniture.
Eyewitnesses report John Lennon brandishing a shotgun in the studio, proclaiming, "This is oral revolution," while Ringo attempted to use live ammunition as drumsticks.
The Home Office has issued a statement urging parents to shield their offspring from this rhythmic menace. First, it's unintelligible music, an official warned. Then it's questionable hair and unbridled debauchery. Where will it end?
Meanwhile, back at Abbey Road Studios, a slightly singed sound engineer muttered, "Note to self, hide the antique weaponry before the next recording session."
1983.
Hold on to your hats, because the Cold War almost went thermonuclear over a malfunctioning computer chip. Soviet Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, a man who clearly knows the difference between a ballistic missile and a bad batch of borscht, averted disaster with a calm, "Nah, it's probably nothing."
Eyewitnesses report Petrov serenely sipping his vodka while his colleagues were moments away from initiating World War III. "I've seen worse technical difficulties on my Rubik's Cube," he reportedly quipped.
Meanwhile, Ronald Reagan, attired in his lucky cowboy boots and clutching his Nukem High playlist, was reportedly unamused.
In News Bang, uncovering the truth piece by fact by word.
And now, for a weather report that's sure to ruffle some feathers, here's Shakanaka Giles with his unique take on the atmospheric antics heading our way.
Well, if it isn't a blast from the past, looks like the weathermen of 1959 are about to get a run for their money. Over in the southeast, we're in for a real typhoon tango, a bit like the 1959 classic Vera, only this time with more umbrellas and less tragic. Batten down the hatches, lads and lasses, because the winds are going to be howling like a pack of disgruntled banshees. Heading up north, the rain will be coming down harder than a landlord demanding back rent. Might want to keep the wellies handy unless you fancy a splash dance down the high street. And in the Midlands, the temperature's going to be as toasty as a freshly baked scone, perfect for those who want to pretend it's still summer. Just don't forget the Factor 50 unless you fancy looking like a well-done sausage. In summary then, a bit of a typhoon tango, a monsoon mosh and a scorching soiree. Sounds like Mother Nature's got a few tricks up her sleeve. And that's all the weather.
Tatende 1917.
It's a muddy mess over in Belgium. Those Allied chaps are having a right go at the Germans in a place called Polygon Wood, and it's about as pleasant as a wet weekend in a trench latrine. They're knee-deep in mud, the rain's coming down sideways, and the only thing thicker than the fog of war is the stench of trench foot. We go live now to our man on the front lines, Brian Bastable, who's hopefully found a dry spot to stand in. Brian, how's the morale amidst all that mud and misery?
Martin, Polygon Wood is less a wood and more a swamp inhabited by creatures that would make a Lovecraftian nightmare blush. The mud here is so thick you could lose a tank in it, and the stench is like 1,000 dead rats having a party in a sewage pipe. It's enough to make a grown man weep, assuming he hasn't already lost his tear ducts to trench foot. Those Allied lads are having a right go at it, Martin, bless their sodden socks. They're charging into the German lines with the enthusiasm of a drunk trying to find his lost dentures in a haystack. The machine guns are chattering like a flock of demented woodpeckers, and the only thing flying faster than the bullets are the bits of dismembered soldiers. It's a scene, Martin, that would make a butcher proud. But it's all for naught, Martin, all for naught. They're taking a proper pasting, those poor lads. Thousands of casualties for a few measly yards of mud. It's enough to make you question the sanity of it all, Martin, the sheer bloody pointlessness of war. This is Brian Bastable Newsbang, signing off from a place where hope goes to die and trench foot reigns supreme.
1933.
And on this day in 1933, the notorious gangster Machine Gun Kelly surrendered to the FBI, allegedly coining the term G-men in the process. In a moment of apparent cowardice, or perhaps just good sense, Kelly reportedly shouted, "Don't shoot, G-men!" as federal agents closed in. This catchy moniker stuck faster than a Tommy gun's trigger, forever branding FBI agents as G-men in the public imagination. Kelly's surrender marked a turning point in the FBI's war on organized crime, proving that even the most trigger-happy of gangsters could be brought to heel. For more on this story, we go to our crime correspondent, Ken Schitt. Ken, was this the day the FBI truly became the nation's top guns?
Ladies and gentlemen, gather round for a tale of bootlegging, bullets, and blubbering surrender. The year was 1933, and the scourge of society, George Machine Gun Kelly, had just pissed his pants in front of the FBI. This trigger-happy son of a bitch thought he was untouchable, snatching up oil tycoon Charles Urschel like a greedy kid in a candy store. But Uncle Sam doesn't take kindly to kidnappers, especially when they're dumb enough to violate the freshly minted Lindbergh Law. So what does our bootlegging bastard do? He cowers like a whipped dog in a Memphis hotel room, cornered by the newly minted heroes of law and order, the FBI. And just when you thought this gangster couldn't get any more pathetic, he mules out, "Don't shoot, G-men," like a scared little kitten. Well, slap my ass and call me Sally, the big bad Machine Gun Kelly, reduced to a quivering mess by a bunch of suits with badges. It's enough to make a grown man weep with laughter. But let me tell you folks, this snivelling surrender did more than just put Kelly behind bars. It cemented the FBI's reputation as the baddest motherfuckers in law enforcement. From that day on, every two-bit crook and bootlegger knew that when the G-men came knocking, it was time to kiss your sorry ass goodbye. So remember, kiddies, crime doesn't pay. Unless you're selling bootleg hooch, then it pays pretty damn well until the G-men catch up with you. This is Ken Schitt, signing off and reminding you to stay on the right side of the law. You degenerate bastards!
1983.
And on this day in 1983, Soviet Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov single-handedly prevented global annihilation by identifying a false alarm in the nuclear early warning system. Petrov's cool-headed decision to report the apparent US missile attack as a glitch averted a potential nuclear war. This incident highlights the razor's edge on which Cold War tensions balanced, and the crucial role of human judgment in averting catastrophe. For more on this story, we go to our Cold War correspondent, Hardiman Pesto. Hardiman.
Martin, I'm here at the Soviet Nuclear Early Warning Center, where Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov has just made a decision that may have saved the world from nuclear annihilation.
Pesto, are you telling me you're actually in a top-secret Soviet military facility?
That's right, Martin. I'm standing right next to the computer that's showing 5 incoming American missiles.
And how exactly did you gain access to this highly classified location?
Well, I told them I was here to fix the coffee machine. They seemed quite keen on that.
Pesto, this is ridiculous. You can't possibly be there. What's really going on?
I assure you, Martin, I'm right here. In fact, I've just had a chat with Colonel Petrov himself. Isn't that right, Colonel?
Da je to verno. Kto vi takoji, kak vi sjuda popali?
Pesto, did you understand a word of that?
Of course, Martin. The Colonel just confirmed everything I've said.
Really? Because it sounded to me like he was asking who you are and how you got in there.
Well, Martin, my Russian might be a bit rusty, but I can assure you...
Pesto, let's cut to the chase. What exactly did Colonel Petrov do?
He looked at the computer screen, saw the missiles, and then he pushed a big red button.
A big red button? Pesto, that's not what happened at all. He determined it was a false alarm and chose not to report it up the chain of command.
Right, yes, that's what I meant to say. He pushed the big red false alarm button.
There is no such button, Pesto. This was a critical decision based on training, experience, and intuition.
Well, perhaps it was more of a metaphorical button then, Martin.
Pesto, I'm beginning to think you're not actually in a Soviet nuclear facility at all.
I most certainly am, Martin. In fact, I'm looking at the facility's state-of-the-art technology right now. It's very impressive.
Really? Describe it for our viewers.
Well, there are lots of blinking lights and big computers with floppy disks, very high-tech stuff.
Pesto, that sounds more like a 1980s sci-fi film set than an actual military installation.
Well, Martin, you know how these Soviets like their retro aesthetics.
Pesto, I think it's time you admitted where you really are.
All right, Martin. The truth is, I'm in a cinema watching war games. But I assure you, it's very educational.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hardem and Pesto, our intrepid reporter, live from a movie theatre. Pesto, next time, try reading a history book instead.
Died Systems News Bang. 2023, the year that truth unfriended you on Facebook. 1983.
And now, for a look at the sporting world, we turn to our correspondent Ryder Boff. Ryder, I understand you have some news about a rather surprising upset in the America's Cup.
And now, let's set sail for the choppy waters of 1983, where the America's Cup has been capsized by a bunch of upstart Aussies. Yes, you heard it right, folks. The New York Yacht Club's 132-year reign has been sunk faster than my ex-wife's alimony expectations. Australia, too captained by the dashing John Salty Dog Bertrand, has done the unthinkable. They've sailed circles around the Americans, leaving them as confused as a landlubber in a lighthouse. The Yanks thought they had this cup locked up tighter than a mermaid's purse, but the Aussies came in like a great white in a paddling pool. Australia too is gaining, folks. They're coming up on the inside like a kangaroo in a shopping trolley. Bertrand's got a look in his eye that could curdle a billy can of milk. The American skipper is shouting instructions, but it's all Greek to me. Or should I say, Strayan? Ha ha! This is getting tense, folks. More tense than a koala in a eucalyptus shortage. Now, I'm no sailor myself. The closest I've come to yachting was a disastrous attempt to impress my third wife with a pedalo on the Serpentine. Let's just say it ended with me, a gaggle of angry swans and a restraining order from the Royal Parks. But even I can appreciate the genius of Australia 2's secret weapon, a keel shaped like a kangaroo's tail. Designed by the enigmatic Ben Barnacle Bill Lexon, it's got more curves than Kylie Minogue in a funhouse mirror. It's all down to this final leg, folks. Australia 2 is rounding the buoy, and they're pulling away. Liberty's sails are flapping like a wet tea towel in a gale. That kangaroo keel is working its magic. It's like watching a dolphin race against a goldfish. The Americans tried to protest, claiming it was about as fair as bringing a speedboat to a rubber duck race, but the officials ruled it was shipshape and Bristol fashion. The final race was tighter than my Uncle Nigel's wallet at Christmas. The Aussies were trailing like a slug in a salt shaker, but then, faster than you can say, throw another shrimp on the barbie, they surged ahead. The American boat, Liberty, looked about as free as a penguin in the Sahara.
They've crossed the finish line. Australia too has done it. It's a miracle. Well, not a miracle exactly, more like a triumph of good design and questionable sportsmanship. But who am I to judge? The Aussies are going wild. They're spraying champagne everywhere. It's like a foam party on a boat. The Americans, on the other hand, look like they've just swallowed a mouthful of seawater. Tough luck, Yanks.
As they crossed the finish line, you could hear the champagne corks popping from Perth to Bondi Beach. Meanwhile, in New York, the yacht club members were crying into their caviar. It's a victory that sent shockwaves through the sailing world, leaving everyone as giddy as a seagull with a stolen chip. Mark my words, this win will do more for Australia's reputation than Crocodile Dundee and Vegemite combined. They've shown they can take on the best and win, even if it means travelling halfway around the world to do it. It's enough to make you want to slip on your budgie smugglers and shout, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi, oi." And that's the sport for tonight. Join me next time when we'll be discussing the controversial new sport of extreme tiddlywinks. Until then, I've been Ryder Boff, and you've been a captive audience. G'day, mates.
And now, for an environmental report guaranteed to make you compost your trousers in fear, it's Penelope Windchime. Penelope, what eco-sins are keeping you up at night?
Oh, the ecological outrage. Today, viewers, we lament the anniversary of Francis Drake's barbaric circumnavigation of the globe. Yes, on this day in 1580, that scoundrel, that nautical vandal sailed back into Plymouth Harbour, his ship laden with plundered gold and a trail of environmental destruction in his wake. Can you imagine the sheer audacity, viewers? Sailing around the world, polluting our precious oceans with his ship's filthy bilge water and carelessly discarded biscuit crumbs, and those poor, defenceless Spanish galleons he plundered. All that stolen gold could have been used to fund sustainable farming initiatives. Yes, he may have proved the earth is round, but at what cost? This has been Penelope Windchime, reminding you to think globally, act locally, and avoid circumnavigating the globe at all costs.
And now, for a traffic report more chaotic than a chimpanzee tea party, it's Polly Beep. Polly, tell us, where's the rubber hitting the road tonight?
Hiya Roadsters, Polly Beep here with a traffic update that's more exciting than a ferret down your trousers. First up, a high-flying spectacle over the English Channel. Swiss daredevil Yves Rossi is trying to cross the channel with a jetpack strapped to his back. Now, if that doesn't make you want to chuck a sickie and head to Dover for a gander, I don't know what will. Back on terra firma, the M25 is so boring tonight. Drivers are falling asleep at the wheel. They're thinking of bringing in those Red Bull lads to do a few flybys and wake everyone up. Up north, a herd of escaped circus elephants is causing a right jumbo jam on the M1. Anyone heading north, pack a trunk load of patience and maybe a spare pair of trousers, just in case. That's all for now, folks. Drive safe, and if you see a man flying over the channel with a jetpack, give him a wave.
1928.
Calamity Prenderville brings us now a report on a revolutionary Chinese linguistic system. Calamity, what can you tell us about this tongue-twisting development?
Good evening, viewers. It's time for another thrilling Science Watch segment. Today we're diving into the world of Chinese linguistics, and boy, is it a mouthful.
On this day in 1928, the Republic of China adopted a revolutionary system called Guoyu Romatzi. Now, you might think this was some sort of exotic Chinese dish, but it's actually a way to write Chinese using our good old Roman alphabet. Imagine that.
This groundbreaking system was the brainchild of British linguist Nigel Chow Smith, who spent years in China studying the intricacies of tones while sipping Earl Grey. His eureka moment came when he accidentally spilled tea on his notebook, creating squiggly lines that resembled Chinese characters.
Guoyu Romatzi is a marvel of British ingenuity. It uses a complex system of spelling to indicate tones, much like how we Brits use our accents to indicate social class. For example, ma could mean mother, horse, or scold, depending on how you spell it. It's like a linguistic game of Cluedo.
The Chinese government was so impressed by this British invention that they immediately adopted it, hoping it would help their citizens master the art of queuing and develop a taste for fish and chips.
However, the system proved to be as popular as warm beer in summer. Many found it more confusing than assembling an IKEA wardrobe without instructions. But fear not, British innovation came to the rescue once again with the invention of Hanyu Pinyin in the 1980s, which uses numbers to indicate tones. Because if there's one thing we Brits excel at, it's complicating simple things with unnecessary numbers.
And there you have it, folks, another fascinating journey through the world of science and technology. This is Calamity Prendeville signing off. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to practice my Guoyu Romatzi, Zai Jian.
Today News Bang, the steel-shod sledgehammer of pure, unadulterated truth.
Mingdiu Apa. And now, for a right royal knees-up through the corridors of history, it's our own crown-loving crooner, Sandy O'Shaughnessy. Sandy, what tales of tiaras and treachery do you have for us tonight?
Nice and easy.
Top of the evening to you, my fine listeners. It's Sandy O'Shaughnessy here, your man for all things royal with a tale straight from the history books. Settle in, grab a biscuit, and let's have a right royal chinwag. Now picture this. The year is 1087. William the Conqueror's son, William Rufus, a strapping young lad with a head of hair like a ginger haystack, is about to become King of England. Talk about a tough act to follow. I received a lovely letter from Moira in Mayo asking, Sandy, is it true they used to pour oil on the new king's head? Seems a bit messy, doesn't it? Well, Moira, you're not wrong. They called it anointing, and I imagine it was a right, slippery business. Probably best not to wear your best velvet doublet for the occasion. Now, William Rufus, a bit of a lad by all accounts, had a right royal rivalry with his brother, Robert. Robert was off in Normandy, sulking like a child who'd lost his favourite teddy bear. I reckon those family reunions must have been a right hoot. Anyway, William's reign wasn't all sunshine and scones. He ended up getting shot in the New Forest, and some say it was no accident. Talk about bad luck. Maybe he should have stayed home and had another slice of that red velvet cake. This is Sandy O'Shaughnessy signing off. Remember, folks, be nice to your siblings and watch out for stray arrows in the forest.
All over the country for everyone.
1968.
Today on this day in 1968, the Beatles put the finishing touches on John Lennon's controversial masterpiece, Happiness is a Warm Gun. The song, inspired by an American gun magazine, became an instant favourite among the Fab Four. With its complex structure and provocative lyrics, it encapsulated the turbulent spirit of the late 60s. But was it truly about firearms, or something far more sinister? For more on this musical mystery, we go to our culture correspondent, Smithsonia Moss.
Now at this point of the evening, we welcome listeners on FM who've just joined us.
Whoa, folks, gather round. It's your girl Smithsonia Moss, and I'm about to dish out the dirt on the Beatles' trippy tune, Happiness is a Warm Gun. This song's got more drama than a Kardashian family reunion, and I'm here to spill all the tea. So, it's 1968, and John Lennon's cruising through the American Rifleman magazine, because why not? He stumbles upon this phrase, happiness is a warm gun, and he's like, aha, song title, baby. And thus, a psychedelic masterpiece was born. Now, I know what you're thinking. Smithsonia, what's the deal with this song's structure? Well, let me tell you, it's like a musical roller coaster ride on acid. It's got more twists and turns than a Hitchcock thriller. The band's all over the place, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's like they're trying to out-weird each other. Paul's on bass, George is on guitar, Ringo's on drums, and John's just, well, being John. They're all like, hey, let's throw in some doo-wop, and then, bam, let's go all heavy metal on this track. It's like they're trying to give the listener whiplash. Lyrically, it's like a fever dream. John's talking about guns and violence and junkies and doctors. It's like he's trying to make a point, but I'm not entirely sure what that point is. Maybe it's like, hey, the world's a crazy place, and we're all just along for the ride. Yeah, that sounds about right. Anyway, the critics loved it, the fans loved it, and it's since become one of the Beatles' most beloved tracks. It's like the ultimate trip song. You can just imagine yourself cruising down the highway, windows down, wind in your hair, and happiness is a warm gun blasting on the stereo. It's like the ultimate freedom anthem. And that's it for tonight, folks. That's the story of Happiness is a Warm Gun, the Beatles' most epic, most trippy, and most utterly confusing song. Tune in next time when I'll be diving into the world of, well, who knows what? Maybe I'll just make something up.
News bang. What the blind would see if their eyes could open, but only on Thursdays.
And finally, it's time for a look at tomorrow's papers. The Times lead with Three's Company as Germany, Italy and Japan sign pact. The Guardian go with hieroglyphs cracked by Frenchman with hat. There's a picture there of the hat. The Mail. Paddle steamer goes down. After rub with SS Vesta. Over 300 dead. The Express have cheapest ever butcher's shop. That's for the Birmingham area only. And the Telegraph. Vicar still lost in Swanage. That's on page 3. That's it. On the day that volunteers collecting rain in buckets for the Irrigation for Relief campaign reported a big surge in the size of their buckets. From all of us here, good night.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. News Bang is a comedy show, written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.